all the time. Guy will start out with nice, 3 or 4 nice false casts, and then when he's about to deliver the fly to the fish, he punches the hell out of it, and everything goes for crap.
That's it.
Maintain your tempo. Don't change the tempo. When you're going to deliver your fly, don't change the tempo. Keep it going. If you're casting to a rising trout, you're getting the timing down. Don't think that you need to push it to get it to the fish. Just lay the fly in.
The toughest guy.
A question, I guess it's human nature, and I've watched a lot of very good casters. When they start to fish and when they relax, they turn slightly sideways and they're fishing sideways. They're not going back and forth, they're fishing on an angle. You may have noticed it as well.
I think it is perfectly natural, human nature, to keep the rod.
And they keep it away from them, and they're not doing this, they're out on the side. You've seen the very good casters, once they relax and start to fish,
Yeah,
they just start doing that.
yeah. I think that is the case, and I think it also comes from that, especially if you got any wind around. It's that fear of getting hit with your fly. Not necessarily a fear of getting hit with your fly.
Try to keep it away from
It's the fear of getting it caught in your net in the back, which will make you have to take your whole vest off and pinch birds. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
If I'm casting for accuracy in a competition, I'm directly over my head.
It's just like that. Yeah.
But when I'm fly fishing, when I'm fishing,
Very
I'm well out to
You're
the
over there on
side.
the side.
Yeah.
If you're off to the side and the rod tip's still straight, wouldn't you still get a cast?
Yes, because it shouldn't matter whether you're sidearm casting to punch a fly under a tree. Everything is the same. You can still maintain a straight line path like this, or like this, if you're fishing a spring creek and you've got nowhere here to make a cast, you can still keep the rod tip traveling in a straight line path.
I like to sometimes turn around and then my back cast becomes my cast.
Yes.
I don't know if it, just because it's a pain in the ass. Like you're stuck somewhere, so you face upstream and your back cast.
Yep, and it's one of the things I'm going to talk about overcoming wind situations. Okay, so when I'm teaching a novice, we basically do a 3-pronged exercise where we get them standing correctly with a comfortable grip, and basically what we call the pick up and lay down, which is just that. Pick it up, lay it down. Then what we do is we add a false cast into that with the same amount of line, about 30 feet of line. We add a false cast into that. So 1 false cast, lay it down. Then we start shooting line. So basically what we do at that point is we're going to get them to do the same false cast exercise with about that much line in the grass. So they're going to make 1 false cast and then shoot the line. This line is so dirty it doesn't shoot with a crap. And what I do then is I talk about the line is going to do one of 2 things. It's either going to go nowhere, which means you let go of the line too late. It's going to collapse in a pile in front of you, which means you let go of the line too early when you were midway through your cast. Or it's going to want to jump out of your hand and the line's going to come up and thwack you on your handle hand, which is a good cast. So that comes down to timing. And timing, just like in a golf swing, is really everything in a fly cast. It's not how much power you apply. A 5-year-old with dexterity can cast a fly line. It's not how much power you apply, it's when you apply it. And I think it was Lefty Kreh that sort of coined the term application of power. And he described a fly cast as a gradual acceleration to an abrupt stop. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. You can't just go at one speed and stop. You have to accelerate forward, just like hitting a baseball, hockey stick, golf ball, badminton shuttle, whatever. So the timing part of it is as critical as the straight line path thing. And then it's all got to come together to the point where you can efficiently shoot line to get distance, deal with wind, and what I mean by dealing with wind is punching an accurate cast through, say, a headwind or a crosswind. But there are other ways that you can kind of deal with these little things, because let's face it, in nature, when we're out there fishing, we don't very often go out on a 67-degree day and have a 3-mile-an-hour wind. It's not the case. So when you find yourself in, I'm sorry, what's your name? Dean. Dean was asking about, or Dean was commenting that he will quite often turn his body around and basically deliver his back cast. So if let's say I'm in a flats boat and I've got a nasty wind coming onto my right shoulder, but all the fish are in front of me. If it's a big wind, like in excess of 40 kilometers, this is not a great cast, because there's a lot of stuff that can happen with that gusting across open flats. There's a lot of bad stuff that can happen. So what Dean was saying was, one thing that you can do to deal with that is, I'm still going to cast towards Dean and Sheldon, but I'm going to turn my body and cast this way, and then I'm going to deliver my back cast. When you get good at that, you can be as accurate with that cast as you can with a forward cast. I guarantee it. So your false cast your back cast and your forward cast in a standard overhand cast should be a mirror image of one another. Oftentimes, though, we'll have a tailing loop on our back cast and our forward cast will be very nice. That's just because you're overpowering your back cast. If you could stand back and videotape yourself, or videotape,
Don't do that.
video yourself with your iPhone or whatever you're using, get a look at that. Stick it up on a tripod if you have one, or on the bleachers at the ballpark, and get a look and see what you're doing without getting with someone who knows what to look for, i.e. a professional casting instructor. You'll just keep doing the wrong stuff. If you're already doing it wrong, you'll just keep doing it wrong. So, as I said, your forward cast and your back cast should be, in a perfect world, a mirror image of one another, which would mean, in theory, I should be as accurate delivering my back cast in that wind situation as I would be delivering it to my front. The other thing, if there's any musky guys out here, big fly guys, well, if you're casting
Half chicken.
a dead cat on a 10-weight rod, it's very difficult to generate, unless you're a real strong guy, it's very difficult to generate an overhand cast and deliver a forward cast. The wrist, most of us, we're just not strong enough. So and I don't do a lot of musky fishing, but when I do, I drink a lot of beer.
Yeah.
Because it gives me the strength of 20 men. Typically what we're doing is we're making our cast, we're delivering our back cast, because it's a lot easier for me to generate speed pulling the fly line, pulling the rod and driving it back that way than it is for me to go this way. So when you're out, if you're going to go out and do some practicing, do just that. Take your ball cap off and set it behind you, get something as a target in front of you, and just practice that, because especially if you spend any amount of time in a boat, and I don't care whether you're bone fishing in Bermuda or bass fishing in the Muskokas, that little trick of delivering your back cast will pay dividends. It's a very, very useful cast. It's far more easy, accurate, and natural than trying to generate a lot of. I can cast short like this if I have to, but if I'm trying to double haul and really, it's that chewing gum and walking at the same time thing, it's just not as natural going this way to deliver a cast there, because again, if I'm dealing with a wind coming onto my right shoulder, this seems the most natural way to go. But I can't generate nearly as much line speed as I can going that way. Okay? Questions?
The reach cast.
Reach cast.
Underused.
Absolutely underused. For any of you that are not familiar with a reach cast or a reach mend, basically when I cast a dry fly into the river and I have to mend the line to get a better drift, I do run the risk, if I'm using a sparsely dressed fly, I do run the risk of pulling the fly under, or if you're fishing in a river, you can, and you're carrying or aerializing 45, 60 feet of line, you can use it in that situation as well, so that your initial mend, if we're steelhead fishing with sink tips or fishing Atlantic salmon, your mend is already in the line. Basically what I'm going to do is, as I stop my rod tip, I'm going to move the rod tip up to the right or up to the left, depending on which side of the river you're on. For those of you that have been taking notes, this is good stuff, like the reach cast and things like that. Far easier with the visual, so Google it and you'll see what I'm talking about. So I wanted to address a couple of the things that, Dean, you asked about and you asked about. When I first started, I talked about how important loop control is, and it is. But we very seldom ever find ourselves being able to all day just make perfect overhand false casts. When we're nymphing, whether you're fishing with a strike indicator or not, if you're casting more than the leader, you will find yourself, especially with weighted rigs, you will find yourself, you dry fly guys, wanting to overhand cast and make a tight loop. This is when you need to go in the opposite direction and actually open up your loop. But the ability to have the control and to be able to do that so you avoid line leader collisions, the ability to do that is really important, because if you're casting with a weighted rig, if you're casting loops like that, gravity is eventually going to take over and you're going to end up making what I call a do-over tangle. So now is the time to actually open up your wrist a little bit and make that loop greater or bigger so that you don't get line leader collisions. All right? That's one way. There's another, I've always called this, the cast is referred to as a Belgian cast. I like to refer to it as the chicks dig it cast. But that's just for memory, you know. And basically what a Belgian cast is, it's not necessarily, it wasn't necessarily designed or brought about for sink tips, but it works perfectly for sink tips. So if this is you and you're casting overhand like that, you're going in that 10 to 2 position. Everything is above you, okay? The Belgian cast, also referred to as an oval cast, and again, these are things that you can Google and watch on YouTube. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to bring the fly rod in the initial part of the cast. I'm going to bring the fly rod very low, and I'm going to try and do this without poking your eye out. Very low on my initial back cast. The rod is going to come back, pull the line through the water, back, and then pop it up. It's not the same abrupt stop as you would in an overhand cast. As you come back, the rod tip is almost going to be traveling in perpetual motion or an oval shape. So it's going to look like this. Whoops. Terrible place apart here. over like this, okay? The reason that works so nicely for any kind of sink tips, you'll see a lot of two-handed guys even casting shooting heads, like Skagit and Scandinavian lines. You'll see a lot of two-handed guys using that cast if they've got room behind them, because it's a very easy, leisurely cast. It's a Belgian cast, okay? And that also works reasonably well with weighted rigs. If you've got a back cast, I can take an indicator and lead rig that I'm using for steelhead, where I might have 4 or 5 BB size shots on it, and if I'm fishing the river this way, I can very easily take that and in one perpetual motion, lay it back up into a 45 with a nice open loop that will eliminate line and leader collisions and get it back to fishing without farting around with 3 or 4 false casts or roll casts to get the fly back up to that upstream 45.